So, get this, my ex actually planted a GPS tracker under my car and started texting me my exact routes like it was some kind of joke. When I finally spoke up about how creepy that was, he just laughed and said, "You can't stalk what's worthless." I turned and walked away. That was 8 months ago. Yesterday, though? A judge reviewed the proof, and I swear, Eric's face turned the color of ash right before the cuffs snapped on. When Eric and I split up back in July, I thought I was finally done with all the madness. It's not like he was some classic villain, we just had totally different senses of humor. Me? I laugh at goofy baby videos or clips of animals doing weird things. Eric? He'd only laugh when someone else was the punchline, especially when that someone was me. Take my 24th birthday, for example. He looked me in the eye and said he'd been cheating on me. We spent the next 2 hours picking apart every detail, who she was, why he did it, how he kept it hidden for an entire year. I was a wreck, rocking back and forth in tears, and only then did he admit it was all made up. Just a joke. And while I sat there sobbing in the corner of his room, he was on the floor, clutching his stomach, dying of laughter. After that, something shifted between us, like the thread holding us together had snapped. But I still loved him, so we dragged things out for another year before finally ending it. We met on Bumble and didn't share any mutual friends, so the breakup itself was pretty clean, mostly. There was just one catch: Eric had always been reckless with money. And during our time together, a big chunk of his cash went towards spoiling me: flowers, designer stuff, shoes, you name it. So when he hit me up at the start of April asking for a loan to cover his taxes, I didn't even blink. I remember rolling my eyes when the notification came through, but it was only $4,000, a drop in the bucket compared to what he'd dropped on me over time. So I sent it. He thanked me, and I genuinely felt like that was the last time I'd ever have to hear from him. But then, the next day, he sent a video of himself in a neon green Lamborghini, blasting Travis Scott. His buddy grabbed the phone and screamed, "Yo Jenna! You're the goat for renting this beast for us." I felt sick. Disgust didn't even begin to cover it. That was a huge chunk of my savings, and he blew it on a joke. The next day, once the hangover wore off, I told him straight, I'd never be sending him a dime again. Right before I could hit block, he started typing. He apologized, swore up and down that he'd never pull anything like that again. I didn't reply. I just blocked him. Everywhere. His main account. His burner. Snapchat. WhatsApp. His mom. His little crew. All of it, gone. Just like that, the knot in my gut finally loosened. Still, it wasn't easy. It took months before I could cry without feeling like I'd be mocked for it. Before I could believe someone without thinking they were setting me up for the punchline. And just as I started feeling like myself again, he emailed me. And Eric, if anyone knows how to twist the knife just right, it's him. Within 20 minutes, I went from healed and steady to getting butterflies from his dumb apology. But this time? I had a little more sense. So when he asked if we could meet up, I said yes. Because I trusted myself not to fall for him again. Looking back, I clearly gave myself too much credit. Some lessons just keep repeating until you finally learn. At first, it was kind of sweet. He showed up wearing the same outfit he wore when we were 20. The song he played in the car was the same one from our very first ride together. He even pulled out my chair before I sat down, or so I thought. Turns out, it was one of his dumb tricks again. He yanked the chair out right as I sat, and I hit the floor. He chuckled, of course. But instead of laughing for 20 straight minutes, he helped me up right away and even apologized. So I went out with him again. And again. And by the third time I remembered why we broke up in the first place. I showed him a few bikinis I was thinking of getting for summer, and without missing a beat, he said, "Well, you're no Margot Robbie, and those bikinis won't change that. But go ahead and order them if you want." I gave him a half-hearted smile, not wanting to ruin the day by reacting. But he wasn't done. Now that we're talking about it, he added, you should really lose like 16 pounds, by the way. I stared at the floor, trying to act like I didn't care. Do you seriously have no empathy? I asked. I look at you every day, and you can't even manage a couple hours a week at the gym? That was the breaking point. My nose ran into my mouth. I cried so hard my hair puffed up like I'd walked through steam. And the more I sobbed, the harder he laughed. I didn't even realize he had his phone out the whole time. I just walked away. That was it. I was done. Blocked him all over again. Every part of me felt numb. I got home, collapsed into bed, and scrolled through TikTok while shoveling Ben and Jerry's into my mouth. That's when I saw it. A TikTok of me, crying on his bed, edited with a clown face filter and sad violin music playing. The caption? When she thinks being mid means she deserves respect. It had already hit 80,000 views. But you know what? This time I laughed. Not because I wasn't mortified, I totally was. Not because my heart wasn't shattered, it absolutely was. But because Eric thought he could keep doing whatever he wanted, forever, without consequences. And that meant he'd never see what was coming. That night, I sat down and started writing. A list of every sick joke, every public humiliation, every time he lied to me or made me feel small. I wasn't looking for petty payback. I wanted precision. I needed him to feel what it was like being the butt of every cruel joke. By morning, my notepad was filled. When you lined up every incident back to back, it was like staring at a map of psychological warfare. Stuff I had convinced myself was normal. The next morning, I made a fresh email and contacted his boss, Allison. I remembered Eric saying she was super strict when it came to employee conduct online. I sent her the TikTok and said it felt inappropriate for someone representing the company to be humiliating women on the internet. I didn't say I was his ex, just someone concerned about the company's image. While I waited to see what would come of that, I reached out to a few girlfriends of his buddies, the ones who had always treated me kindly. I showed them the video and asked if their boyfriends had helped make it. None of them had even seen it, and their reactions were genuine disgust. Turns out Eric had been painting me as some crazy, obsessed ex since we split. One of the girlfriends even shared screenshots from their group chat. He'd been dragging my name through the mud for months. 4 days later, my friend Shannon texted me. Eric had taken the TikTok down. I went to check my roommate's phone and saw that Eric had wiped every trace of his online presence, scrubbed his entire account clean. Later that same day, he emailed me again. But this time, the tone had changed. There was no fake charm, no smooth talk. Just pure, unfiltered anger. He wanted to know why I was trying to ruin his life and told me his boss had formally reprimanded him for inappropriate conduct online. I didn't reply. I knew better than to give him the reaction he was fishing for. This wasn't revenge, I wasn't trying to destroy his world. I just wanted him to finally feel the consequences of the things he'd done. For once in his life, I wanted him to actually think before humiliating another woman like he did me. I'd been the punchline in his cruel little routines for far too long. But now? The script was flipping. I wasn't after some grand punishment, I just wanted justice, even in the smallest dose. Looking back, I probably should have known that deleting the TikTok wouldn't be the end of it. Eric never took hits to his ego lightly. 7 days after that angry email, I was mindlessly scrolling through Instagram when I noticed something odd, an influx of follow requests from my coworkers. Now, most of us kept a strict line between our work and personal lives, so it immediately struck me as weird. Then the text messages started flooding in. Wait, is that really you? OMG Jenna, why would you post that? Are you okay? Do you need someone to talk to? My stomach dropped. I didn't even need to check, I already knew this was Eric's handiwork. With shaking hands, I opened Instagram. My inbox was overflowing with messages, coworkers, old acquaintances, even distant relatives I barely talked to. Someone had made a fake Instagram account using my name and my real photos. But the bio? It read, "Just a desperate girl looking for attention and money from her exes." The most recent post was a sloppy Photoshop job of me sitting on a pile of cash, with the caption, "Another day, another man to be next." And to make matters worse, the account had tagged every single person from my workplace, including my boss, Dana. I immediately reported the account and sent a quick text to my closest work friend, Maya, explaining that it was fake. She called me almost immediately. "Don't worry," she said, her voice calm and steady. "Everyone knows it's not you." Dana already sent out an email telling folks to ignore it. I felt a rush of relief, but it was quickly replaced by fury. Eric wasn't just trying to embarrass me anymore. He was actively trying to mess with my job. Fine, I thought. Two can play at that game. I didn't message him. That's exactly what he wanted, attention. Instead, I took screenshots. Every post, every message, everything he'd done so far, including the original TikTok. I was building a case. Thankfully, the fake Instagram got taken down within a day. But the damage to Eric's reputation? That was permanent. Maya and a few other coworkers who had met him back when we were together now saw the real Eric, and word travels fast. About a week passed, and for the first time in a while, I started to breathe easy. Maybe he finally got the hint. Then I came home from work to a delivery guy standing outside my apartment, looking confused and holding what looked like enough pizza to feed a small army, 20 boxes, each with different toppings, all paid for in advance. "I didn't order these," I told him. He double-checked the slip. My full name. My exact address. Even a note, "Surprise party, please knock loud. I might be in the shower." The bill? Over $700. I explained the situation as calmly as I could, and thankfully, the delivery guy was cool about it. He called his manager, who agreed, reluctantly, not to charge me. As he packed the pizzas back into his car, I got a text from an unknown number. "Dinner served. Hope you're hungry." I know it sounds ridiculous compared to the Instagram thing, but that pizza stunt shook me up more than I expected. Eric knew where I lived. He had my address. For the first time, I felt genuinely unsafe. That night, I called my older brother Ben. He lived on the other side of town and had never liked Eric. He saw through him from the start. I told him everything, every incident, every trick, every humiliation. Ben drove over right away and helped me change the locks on my apartment. We also put up a basic security camera that connected to my phone. It wasn't anything fancy, but it helped me sleep a little better. "You should file a police report," Ben said as we tested the new locks. "This is harassment." I sighed. With what? A deleted TikTok? A fake Instagram account that's already gone? Some pizzas I didn't order? They'll laugh me right out of the precinct. Ben didn't argue. He just frowned. Then document everything. Screenshots. Dates. Times. If he escalates again, you'll want a paper trail. So I did. I started keeping a log, everything Eric had done, in order, with timestamps and evidence. I also remembered the women Eric used to talk about when we were together, exes he mentioned here and there. I found 2 of them on Facebook and sent them carefully worded messages, just asking if they'd ever experienced anything similar. Honestly, I wasn't expecting much. But to my surprise, both of them replied within a day. And their stories? They turned my blood to ice. Rachel, who dated Eric in college, told me he once convinced her she had an STD, just to watch her panic. Days went by before he finally told her he was just kidding. Lena said he hacked into her email and canceled a job interview she'd been prepping for weeks, just to watch her fall apart when she got the rejection. It was like reliving my own trauma through their words. The same twisted humor, the same emotional damage, the same pattern of cruelty wrapped in a joke. "We should start a support group," Lena joked when we moved our chat to a group thread. And that gave me an idea, not a support group exactly, but maybe, strength in numbers. If one complaint had been enough to make Eric delete his TikTok, what could three of us do? Over the next few days, we shared what we knew, where he worked, his online accounts, mutual friends. None of us wanted to ruin his life like he kept accusing me of trying to do. We just wanted him to stop. To be held accountable. To hesitate before pulling the same stunts on someone else. Rachel, who works in HR now, suggested we compile everything and report it as a long-term harassment pattern to his company's human resources department. Lena, who owns a small business, thought we should focus on warning others, spread the word quietly among shared circles. Both plans had merit. But I hesitated. Eric was volatile when he felt threatened. And right on cue, he struck again. I was at work when my phone rang. It was my credit card company, asking if I'd approved a series of high-dollar purchases. Someone had tried to charge over $7,000 at an electronics store. The fraud department flagged it because it didn't fit my normal spending habits. Have you given your card information to anyone recently? The rep asked. I hadn't. But Eric had my card number from when we were dating. I'd never even thought to replace it after the breakup. He'd never acted like he cared about my money before. He always insisted on paying. I canceled the card immediately and requested a new one. When I got home that evening, I checked my email and found 3 subscription confirmations for adult sites. All using my work email. I spent hours that night canceling the subscriptions and updating every password I could think of. Each click felt like scrubbing off layers of grime he'd left behind. I felt violated all over again, and that was it. That was the line. The next morning, I called in sick and headed straight to the police station. The officer listening to my report looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, at least until I brought up the credit card fraud. Suddenly, he sat up a little straighter. Now that, he said, we can look into. Financial crimes leave a trail. The rest gets tricky without explicit threats. Still, I left with a case number in hand and just the tiniest flicker of hope. At least now someone official knew what was going on. At least now, it was documented. But when I checked my phone outside the station, a chill went straight down my spine. There was a text from an unknown number. Think you're smart going to the cops? Now it's even more fun. Game on, Jenna. My hand shook as I showed the message to Ben, who'd come with me. Only one person ever called me Jenna, and only he had the nerve to use Jenna-G, a nickname I despised. Ben didn't hesitate. We're getting you a new number today, he said. And you're staying at my place until this gets sorted. I didn't argue. For the next week, I lived out of a duffel bag on Ben's couch, sticking to a strict routine: go to work, come straight back, head down, always alert. I felt like I was under lockdown. But at least I wasn't alone. Meanwhile, my group chat with Rachel and Lena stayed active, and now there was a new level of urgency to our conversations. We started brainstorming ways to protect myself and, at the same time, hold Eric accountable. Rachel had a friend who worked at Eric's company and confirmed what I'd hoped: his boss hadn't just scolded him. He was officially on thin ice. Apparently, there were already other complaints in his file, stuff I'd never known about. That lit a spark in my brain. If Eric was already under scrutiny at work, maybe we could use that to push back, not to get him fired, just to get him to stop. Lena suggested we each send formal emails to his company's HR department. Nothing coordinated, nothing that looked like a pile-on, just 3 women sharing eerily similar experiences, backed by receipts. Keep it professional, Rachel advised. Don't get emotional, just the facts. Companies care about liability, not tears. So we spent a weekend writing. We helped each other with phrasing, made sure every email was polished and calm, and each of us told our own story. I included my police report number about the credit card incident, hoping it would lend some weight. Then we hit send. 6 days passed. Silence. No word from the company. No new texts from Eric. I started to wonder if maybe our messages got buried in someone's inbox. But then Thursday afternoon rolled around, and I got a LinkedIn message from someone named Claire. Turns out, she was the HR director at Eric's company. She asked if I'd be willing to speak with her directly. We set up a call for later that day. Claire was calm, professional, but not cold. She said they'd received all 3 emails and were taking them seriously. Eric had been placed on administrative leave while they launched a formal investigation. I can't disclose specific actions, she said carefully, but I want you to know we don't tolerate this kind of behavior. I thanked her, and as soon as the call ended, I just sat there, staring at the screen. After all the times Eric's behavior had been brushed off or laughed away, having someone in authority take it seriously, it hit hard. That evening, another email from Eric landed in my inbox. Subject line, stop. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you've crossed the line, he wrote. They suspended me because of your lies. Is that what you wanted? To destroy my career over a few jokes? You're going to regret this. I didn't say a word. I forwarded it to Claire and blocked him again. His threats made my skin crawl, but I wasn't scared of him anymore. Not like before. The next day, Ben and I went back to my place to grab more clothes. But something felt off the moment we reached my door. The security camera we'd mounted? Gone. The bracket was still there, but the camera itself had vanished. Did you move it? Ben asked, his brow furrowed. I shook my head. My heart started pounding. We eased the door open and checked every room. No signs of a break-in, nothing obvious out of place, except one thing. My bed was made. And I never make my bed before work. Ben turned to me, his voice low. We're leaving. Right now. We bolted back to the car, and he called the police from the driver's seat. Officers came and took a second report. But with no forced entry, there wasn't much they could do. The cops suggested maybe my landlord had been in for maintenance, but a quick phone call ruled that out. No one from the building had entered my unit. That's when it hit me. Eric still had my spare key from when we were dating. I'd never thought to ask for it back. At first, our breakup was so civil, I never imagined I'd need to. You can't stay here, Ben said. It's not safe. And he was right. But I couldn't crash on his couch forever. I needed something more permanent. That night, I called my landlord and explained the situation. To my surprise, he understood and agreed to let me break my lease without penalty, if I could move out within 2 weeks. It'd stretch my budget, but I didn't care. My safety came first. While I hunted for a new place, something unexpected happened. Drew, Eric's friend from the Lamborghini stunt, called me. I hadn't heard from him in months, and he sounded uneasy. Look, he said, I know we're not close or anything, but I think you should know, Eric's talking about getting even. Real revenge type stuff. He's off the rails. My heart dropped. What kind of revenge? I don't know the details, Drew admitted. I asked, but he just got cagey. He's drinking a lot, talking crazy. I figured you deserved a heads up. Why now? I asked. Drew sighed. My girlfriend saw the TikTok. She freaked out. Said if I didn't warn you, she'd dump me. And honestly, I feel terrible about the whole car thing. It wasn't cool. I told him thanks, genuinely. Then I sent his number to Ben with a quick note, just in case something happened to me. I know it sounds paranoid, but I didn't want to take chances anymore. The very next day, I signed for a new apartment across town. It cost more than I liked, but it had a secure entrance with a fob system and, most importantly, Eric didn't know where it was. I put down the deposit on the spot and set my move for the following weekend. I asked a handful of friends to help, not just to lift boxes, but to have extra eyes. Extra protection. This wasn't just a fresh start. It was survival. As moving day crept closer, my paranoia kicked into overdrive. I started checking under my car for trackers, taking different routes to work every day like I was in some low-budget spy movie. Only, this wasn't fiction, and nothing about it was thrilling. The day before the move, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "One last joke." No message. Just a video file attached. Everything in me screamed, "Don't open it." But curiosity, or maybe some twisted need to know, got the better of me. I hit play. The footage showed my apartment. My bedroom. My bathroom. My living room. The camera moved through the space slowly, almost like it was savoring each detail. It lingered on personal things, my framed photos, jewelry on the nightstand, even the drawer where I kept my underwear. And then, the camera zoomed in on my bed, perfectly made, and right there, on the pillowcase, scrawled in what looked like red lipstick. "Sweet dreams, Jenna." I dropped my phone like it was on fire. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I immediately forwarded the video to the officer working my case and called Ben, sobbing so hard I couldn't get the words out at first. "I'm on my way," he said. "Pack a bag for tonight. We're getting everything out tomorrow. First thing." That night, sleep was impossible. Every creak in the apartment made me jump. Every shadow felt like a threat. Ben stayed up with me, going over the plan for the next day, doing his best to keep me grounded. Around 6 a.m., my phone buzzed again, another unknown number. "Moving won't save you. I'll always find you." I showed it to Ben. His jaw tightened as he picked up his phone and called the police. They said they'd send someone in the morning to take another statement, but unless the messages included a direct threat of physical violence, there wasn't much they could do right now. "This is unbelievable," I muttered, pacing back and forth in Ben's living room. "How is this not enough?" "Because the law's broken," Ben said, dead serious. "But we're not waiting on them anymore. Tomorrow, we take care of this ourselves." By morning, I had a team. Ben. Maya from work. 3 of my old college friends. Even Rachel and Lena showed up in person for the first time. 6 of us tackled the apartment in a flurry of movement, packing, taping, hauling. Nobody went anywhere alone. Ben inspected every box before it left the apartment to make sure nothing had been tampered with. We were down to the last few loads when a car pulled up across the street. Eric. He sat there, just watching us with that smug look I'd come to know too well. I froze, every muscle tensing. "Don't give him the satisfaction," Ben said. "He wants a reaction." But Lena wasn't having it. She marched across the street, holding her phone out in front of her, clearly recording. I couldn't hear what she said, but Eric's face morphed from smug to rattled in seconds. He peeled off down the street, tires screeching. When she came back, I asked, "What did you say?" She gave me a dark smile. Told him I was live streaming. Said I had his license plate, name, workplace. And I reminded him that 3 women filing separate harassment reports makes a damn good case for a restraining order. Ben blinked. "Wait, were you really live streaming?" "Nope," Lena said, grinning. "But he doesn't know that." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I laughed. A real, full-belly laugh. It felt so good to see him retreating for once. The move into my new place went smoothly. Everyone helped set up my bed, desk, couch, just the basics. Ben installed a full-blown security system, door sensors, window alarms, cameras that sent footage straight to the cloud. The building had fob-only entry, and my apartment was on the 3rd floor. I made sure not a single social media account listed my location. I was off the map. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my new apartment surrounded by boxes. I was still afraid, but I was also furious, and strangely, hopeful. Eric had tried to isolate me. Instead, he'd accidentally built me a network stronger than I'd ever had before. The very next day, I got a formal letter from the police. After reviewing all my reports and evidence, they'd approved a temporary restraining order against Eric. I'd still need to appear before a judge in 2 weeks to make it permanent, but for now, he was legally required to stay away. I forwarded the paperwork to Claire at Eric's company, just to keep her in the loop. She replied quickly. Thank you for the update. Without breaching confidentiality, I can confirm that Mr. Gardner is no longer employed with us as of yesterday. I stared at the screen in disbelief. He'd been fired. After everything, after all the times no one had taken me seriously, something had finally stuck. I sent the news to Rachel and Lena, and we had a little victory celebration over video chat that night. We never set out for revenge. All we wanted was to be believed. To protect others. To stop him. And for a few days, it seemed to work. No texts. No emails. No more surprises. I even felt comfortable enough to go to a movie with Maya one night, first time I didn't constantly glance over my shoulder. But then, Friday night came. My security system pinged, motion detected at your door. I opened the live feed and my blood went cold. It was Eric. He stood right outside my apartment door, swaying a little like he'd been drinking. I had no idea how he found me. Or how he'd even gotten into the building. Then I saw it. On the camera, I could tell he must have followed someone in after they used their fob, tailgate behind a resident who didn't stop him. All the security in the world didn't matter if people held the door open for strangers. I grabbed my phone and whispered into the call with 912. Someone with a restraining order against them is outside my door. He's trying to get in. The dispatcher told me to stay calm and quiet, officers were on their way. Those 20 minutes felt like an eternity. I watched from my phone as Eric banged on my door, jiggled the handle. Thank God it was locked. He leaned in, said something I couldn't quite make out. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled something out. A key. My stomach dropped. The locksmith. Later, I found out from my landlord that Eric had somehow convinced the building's locksmith he was my boyfriend who'd lost his key. Showed him old pictures of us together as proof and even paid extra for a rush copy. But before he could try it, the hallway lights flashed. 2 officers turned the corner and approached. Eric flinched, caught off guard. He quickly stuffed the key, or whatever it was, back into his pocket. I couldn't hear what was said, but I saw his wild gestures, his finger pointing toward my door. One cop radioed for backup while the other kept him talking. After a minute or two, they cuffed him. And just like that, Eric Gardner was finally led away. Only after I saw Eric in handcuffs on that screen did I realize I'd been holding my breath the entire time. When my phone rang, it was the police calling to confirm Eric was officially in custody for violating the restraining order. They asked if I could come to the station to give a full statement. Ben drove me, sitting right beside me while I recounted everything that had happened. The officer who took my statement was meticulous, requesting every piece of documentation I had. When I told him about the object Eric had pulled from his pocket outside my door, the officer made a note and said they'd check what he had on him during booking. What happens now? I asked once we were done. He'll be held until arraignment on Monday, the officer explained. Given the restraining order and the pattern of harassment, the judge will likely set bail with strict conditions, possibly an ankle monitor, maybe even an order to leave the city altogether. I nodded slowly, feeling this strange swirl of emotions, relief, dread, and a deep sadness. This wasn't the ending I'd pictured when I first met Eric all those years ago. Back when I thought he was just a charming, slightly sarcastic guy who liked me. As we got up to leave, the officer called me back. We found something else in his possession, he said, holding up a small plastic evidence bag. Inside was a device, a GPS tracker. Matches what you reported earlier, he added. We're getting a warrant to check your car or belongings. If it's still active, we'll know. That explained how he found my new address. I'd been so careful about everything, my apartment, my online presence, but I hadn't changed my car. He must have slipped it on weeks ago. The next morning, a police tech checked underneath my car and found it, magnetized to the frame, quietly tracking my every move. I felt sick. But with Eric locked up and the tracker finally gone, I allowed myself to start settling in. I unpacked a little. Organized my bookshelf. And just as I was placing the last novel on the top shelf, my phone buzzed with a message from Claire, the HR director from Eric's old job. "I probably shouldn't be telling you this," she wrote, "but you deserve to know. Eric listed you as a reference on a job application. I was contacted by a potential employer. I told them the truth about why he's no longer with our company. They've withdrawn their offer." I sank onto the couch, emotions swirling. A part of me felt validated, finally, his actions were catching up with him. But another part of me just felt this dull ache. I didn't want revenge. I never had. But watching someone you once loved crumble under the weight of their own cruelty, it's complicated. What I felt most, though, was strength. I hadn't done this alone. Rachel, Lena, Ben, Maya, even people I hadn't expected like Claire and Drew, had stood by me. They helped me hold the line. That Monday, I chose to attend Eric's arraignment. I didn't have to. The prosecutor had enough evidence to proceed without me. But I needed to be there, to witness the consequences face to face. Eric looked small in that orange jumpsuit. The loud, cocky man who used to tower over my life seemed deflated. When he saw me, his expression flickered, anger at first, then something I almost mistook for shame. The judge set bail with strict conditions, an ankle monitor, no passport, and an extended restraining order. This one didn't just cover me, it also protected Rachel and Lena. He was banned from contacting us in any way, directly or indirectly. As we left the courthouse, Lena linked her arm through mine. "You know what the best revenge is?" she asked. "Living well. And helping other people avoid guys like him." I smiled, the tension in my chest easing. "I'm thinking about starting a support group," I said. "There have to be others out there, people who feel as scared and alone as I did." "Count me in," Rachel said, stepping up on my other side. "We could make a website. Share resources. Tips. What to do, what to document." We walked down those courthouse steps together, already talking plans. The sun was warm, and for once, I didn't look back. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The legal stuff would take time, and healing wasn't going to be quick. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel powerless. The win wasn't humiliating Eric the way he humiliated me. The win was reclaiming my peace. My strength. Using the nightmare he created to help others wake up from theirs. That was something he could never undo. I wish I could say that was the end. That the story wrapped up with a neat little bow. But life doesn't work that way. The next few weeks were calm. The ankle monitor kept Eric away, and I finally started to relax. I wasn't jumping at shadows or checking locks every 5 minutes. I went out with Maya for drinks one night and didn't even scan the room obsessively. Then it happened. One quiet evening, my phone buzzed with a message from another unknown number. "Check your email." I knew I shouldn't. But I did. In my inbox was a message from a brand new email address. The subject line, "Last warning." There was a link to a private Instagram account. My heart pounded as I clicked, against all logic, against every warning bell going off in my brain. The account had one post. Just one. It was a photo of me, walking into my apartment building that same morning. The caption read, "Ankle monitors come off eventually." My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. I called Ben. He was there in minutes. We filed yet another police report. The officer who took it looked genuinely concerned but admitted, again, that it wasn't enough for further legal action. The message wasn't a direct threat. It was a warning, but not one that counted. "How is someone stalking me to my new home not threatening?" I asked, my voice cracking. The officer looked pained. "I get it. I do. But the law, it has gaps. Just keep documenting everything." After he left, I just sat there. Silent. hollowed out. I can't live like this, I told Ben. I can't keep waiting for the next message. The next visit. The next trap. You don't have to, Ben said. Remember that support group you talked about? Maybe it's time to do it. For real. He was right. The next day, I messaged Rachel and Lena about launching that resource site we joked about outside the courthouse. They didn't even hesitate. Rachel said she had a friend who built websites, and when he heard our story, he offered to help pro bono. 2 weeks later, we had it live. A simple website. Clean design. Clear resources. We called it The Last Laugh, a nod to the hell we'd been through and the strength we'd found. It had pages on how to document harassment, report stalkers, navigate restraining orders, and protect your digital life. We shared our stories anonymously. And we opened the door for others to share theirs too. That was the beginning of something bigger. Not a perfect ending, but a powerful one. And for once, the last laugh was mine. I threw myself into the website. Every evening after my day job, I'd sit at my laptop updating pages, answering emails, tweaking layouts. It gave me a sense of purpose, a mission, really. And more than that, it gave my brain something to focus on that wasn't Eric. Over time, I stopped checking the security cameras every hour. I wasn't jumping at every creak in the hallway or shadow on the sidewalk. For the first time in months, I felt like I was starting to come back to myself. Then, one afternoon, a notification hit my inbox. Someone had submitted a story through our website. At first, I felt proud, we were reaching people. But as I began reading the submission, my blood turned to ice. It described a relationship with a man who liked to prank his girlfriend. Said he once pretended to cheat on her birthday to test her loyalty. The tone was cruelly flippant. Almost mocking. And the writing. I knew it. That cadence. That smirking, self-satisfied style. It was Eric. No doubt in my mind. Pretending to be a victim. Mocking everything we'd built. I didn't hesitate. I forwarded the story straight to our police contact. Within hours, they confirmed it violated the restraining order. They picked him up that same afternoon. When I found out he'd spent the night in jail before making bail again, I felt something strange and steady rise up inside me. Satisfaction. This time, the judge didn't go easy. His ankle monitor restrictions were extended, and new conditions were added. But the most unexpected twist came a few days later when I got a call from Claire, the HR director who'd helped us before. I probably shouldn't be telling you this, she said in a low voice, but I thought you should know. Since Eric's second arrest, we've had 3 women from previous workplaces reach out. My stomach dropped. Let me guess, same behavior? She sighed. Exactly. Similar patterns of harassment. Same type of jokes. One woman mentioned the fake cheating prank. I mean, who does that more than once? She paused. One of his former supervisors wants to speak with you. I agreed, not sure what to expect. That meeting ended up being with Greg, a VP who'd hired Eric at one of his old jobs. Greg sat across from me in the cafe and looked like he hadn't slept in days. When we heard about the charges, he said, I started asking questions internally. What I found, it wasn't just you. It wasn't even just 3 women. There were more. But we missed the pattern. Each incident seemed isolated. The women didn't know each other, and nothing ever escalated, until now. He looked me in the eye. I'm sorry we didn't see it sooner. Greg offered to submit official documentation from those past incidents to the prosecutor. It wouldn't erase what had happened, but it helped show that Eric's behavior wasn't new. It wasn't a fluke. It was a pattern. That night, I updated the website again, this time adding a whole section on spotting red flags in workplace harassment. How to recognize the signs early. How to connect with others quietly if you suspect you're not the only one. As I was finishing the page, my phone lit up. A message from Maya. It was a screenshot of Eric's LinkedIn profile. Looks like he's trying to move to Seattle. Says he's starting fresh with a new company. My stomach turned. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or horrified. On one hand, maybe he was finally out of my life. On the other, was someone else about to become his next target? I forwarded the info to our police contact. They told me his bail conditions should restrict out-of-state travel, especially for a pending trial. But if the new company was helping with relocation, it wasn't impossible. The next morning, I made a decision. I called the number listed on the Seattle company's website and asked to speak to HR. A woman named Heidi answered. "This is going to sound strange," I began, "but I need to inform you about a man named Nathan Gardner who may have recently applied to your company." There was a pause. Then she said, "Go on." I stuck to the facts. No emotion. No speculation. Just the truth. The restraining order. The arrests. The documented harassment. The previous employers who had corroborated similar incidents. Heidi listened quietly. "Thank you," she said finally. "We'll be looking into this immediately." I hung up, unsure how it would play out, but knowing I'd done what I could. I hadn't lied. I hadn't made it personal. I'd simply spoken up, to try and protect whoever might be next. 5 days later, I got an email from Heidi. They'd contacted Eric's past employers and verified everything I'd told them. His job offer had been officially withdrawn. She thanked me for speaking up, and for having the courage to protect others. That same evening, my doorbell rang. I checked my security camera. A uniformed officer stood outside. I opened the door, heart pounding. "Good evening," he said. "I'm Officer Coleman. We need to talk about Nathan Gardner." I braced myself for the worst. But what he told me, I didn't see coming. This morning, Mr. Gardner attempted to remove his ankle monitor. He was apprehended during the attempt. During processing, we accessed his phone. What we found was extensive evidence of multiple harassment campaigns. He paused. "You were one of them. But there were many others." My knees gave out. I sank onto the couch as he continued. "The DA is upgrading the charges. Stalking. Cybercrime. Identity fraud. He's being held without bail until trial. The judge no longer sees him as a safe candidate for release." For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I exhaled fully. Eric wasn't just being arrested. He was being held accountable. Officer Coleman left me his card and said the district attorney's office would contact me about testifying. As soon as he left, I FaceTimed Rachel and Lena. We were practically speechless. Laughing. Crying. Processing. "I can't believe it's really over," I whispered. "It's not just over," Lena said. "He's finally facing consequences." That's rare. She was right. Too many women never get that closure. Too many cases go unacknowledged. But not this one. And our little website? It was helping more than we ever imagined. Submissions started coming in daily, from women all across the country. Survivors. Fighters. People who just needed to know they weren't alone. We added forums. Partnered with legal clinics. Started hosting weekly support chats. Meanwhile, the DA kept me updated on Eric's case. The data from his phone painted a horrifying picture: notes on his targets, schedules, fears, prank plans. Files dating back years. Women I'd never heard of. Vulnerabilities catalogued like trophies. Then one morning, my phone rang again. Unknown number. It was Drew, Eric's old friend from the Lamborghini video. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "I know we're not close or anything, but I wanted to say I'm sorry." I said nothing. Just listened. "I didn't realize how bad it was," he continued. "But I've been talking to the DA. I told them everything I knew about Eric's jokes. I should have done it sooner. Why now? I asked. Drew hesitated. My sister found your site. She recognized Eric from one of the stories. Showed it to me. And suddenly, everything just clicked. I saw him for who he really was. He paused again. I was a terrible friend for going along with his crap. I'm sorry. It wasn't perfect. But it felt honest. And it reminded me, this website, this effort, it mattered. We weren't just helping victims. We were waking people up. The day before Eric's pre-trial hearing, I got another call. This time, from Douglas. Eric's father. I almost didn't pick up when I saw the number. But curiosity, as always, got the better of me. Jenna, the voice said, tired, older than I remembered it, quieter. I don't even know what to say except. I'm sorry. It was Douglas. Eric's father. We never realized how serious his behavior was, he continued. We just thought he was high-spirited. Playing dumb jokes. I didn't say a word. I just let him talk. His mother and we've been going through the case files. The things he did to you, to those other women, his voice cracked. We failed him. We failed to teach him how to respect people. I finally spoke. What do you want from me, Douglas? Nothing, he replied quickly. You don't owe us anything. I wanted you to know. We're not contesting anything. We're not hiring expensive lawyers to sweep this under the rug. He needs to face the consequences. All of them. When the call ended, I sat in silence. I didn't feel triumphant. There was no comfort in hearing the pain in his voice. Only sadness. Sadness for the people Eric had hurt. Sadness for the warning signs that had gone unnoticed for so long. Sadness that someone who once had so much potential had used his intelligence to hurt, manipulate, and humiliate instead of doing something meaningful. The day of Eric's hearing arrived. I dressed with care, nothing flashy, just a simple blue dress that made me feel grounded. I met Rachel and Lena outside the courthouse. We'd agreed to attend together. No matter what happened, we'd face it side by side. Inside the courtroom, I was struck by how many people had shown up. Claire was there, sitting with a quiet kind of pride. Greg came too, his presence like a formal apology for what had gone unchecked at Eric's old company. Even Drew sat in the back, shoulders slouched, eyes down, like he still didn't know where to put his guilt. The DA had told me they had a solid case. But seeing the support, the witnesses, the proof, it made it all feel real. Tangible. When they brought Eric in, he looked nothing like the man who used to laugh at my tears. He was pale. Smaller. Like the walls he'd built around himself had finally collapsed. He didn't look up. Didn't meet anyone's eyes. Just stared at the table in front of him. The court proceedings were brief. His lawyer stood and said they were pursuing a plea deal. The judge nodded and set a new date for the hearing. As we stepped outside, a reporter from the local paper approached. Would you like to make a statement about the case? He asked gently. I hesitated. Then I took a breath. This isn't about revenge, I said. It's about accountability. And protecting others. I glanced at Rachel and Lena before continuing. We created the Last Laugh website to help people recognize the warning signs we missed. To give them access to resources we didn't have. That's the only statement I want to make. 2 weeks later, I received the official email. Eric had taken the plea. 5 years in prison. Eligibility for parole after 22 months. Mandatory psychological counseling. And a permanent restraining order barring him from contacting me, Rachel, Lena, or any of the other documented victims, ever again. It was over. Not with some Hollywood-style face-off. Not with a screaming match or a dramatic courtroom scene. Just a final document. A digital signature. And the quiet but undeniable acknowledgement that harm had been done. That evening, I sat on my balcony, sipping tea as the sun dipped below the skyline. My phone buzzed with a notification. Our website had just hit 25,000 visitors. 15,000. We were making a difference. I scrolled through some of the anonymous messages people had submitted. I thought I was overreacting, until I found your site. Your story gave me the courage to report my ex. I don't feel so alone anymore. These weren't just comments. They were stories. Lives. People finally seeing themselves clearly, maybe for the first time. They weren't looking for revenge. They were looking for peace. For validation. For hope. And we were giving it to them. I turned off my phone, breathed in the crisp night air, and looked out over the soft glow of the city lights. For the first time in months, I didn't check the cameras before heading to bed. I didn't glance over my shoulder. I didn't lock every deadbolt twice or scan the underside of my car in the morning. I just walked inside. Made myself a cup of tea. And opened my laptop to start planning the next phase of the last laugh. The last laugh wasn't some single satisfying moment where I finally got to point and say, "See? I win." No. It was this. This new life. This strength I'd built from scratch. A space where Eric held no power. No shadow. No voice. And that felt better than any revenge ever could.